The Chinese government sets out new rules for overseas investments, police sound the alarm on potentially fraudulent ASU schemes, and there's new revelations about the relationship between former Prime Minister Perry Christie and his deputy. We've got all those stories and more. I'm your host, Ava Turnquist, and this is the Tribune's Top 5. Emails obtained by the Tribune purport to show that former Cabinet Minister Shane Gibson directed executives at Bahamas Power and Light to pay out a lump sum to its employees just days ahead of the May 10th general election. Those emails purport to show that the then Minister of Labour and National Insurance directed top BPL executives and the former board to make payments by May 5th, 2017, so that the energy monopolies unions maintain parity with their public sector counterparts. The documents show that the payments were rapidly calculated, authorized, and paid within a 4-day period following Mr. Gibson's directive. A May 2, 2017 email from now terminated BPL Chief Executive Pamela Hill to a senior human resources executive stated, "I have been advised that the Minister of Labour has directed BPL to provide a one-time lump sum payment equal to an increment payable to all staff in both unions." That same evening, Donna Smith, BPL's then vice chair, obtained confirmation from Mr. Gibson that his instructions were correct, while also revealing that the former Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis, who had ministerial responsibility for BPL, has no objection to the payment being made. Ms. Smith wrote, "It would appear that we are obliged in the circumstances to make the payment," and added, "I am asking DPM and Minister of Labour to confirm knowledge of and agreement with above matters so that payments may be made without further delay." Mr. Gibson provided his confirmation, according to the emails, 2 hours later. The 2 officers caught drinking on video while riding in a police squad car have been demoted, according to an order obtained by the Tribune. The Royal Bahamas Police Force order was signed by Police Commissioner Ellison Greenslade on August 22nd and was said to have taken effect that same day. One officer, a corporal, was demoted to the rank of constable, while the other officer, who held the rank of constable, was also reduced in seniority. The demotions were confirmed by police in a press release earlier this week. The video in question went viral last month. In the video, one officer is seen holding a bottle of Colic while they appear to ignore a call from the police control room. The officers were suspended and given 14 days to show cause letters. In the video, the officers appeared to ride without seatbelts on, and they ignored a call from the control room because, as one of them said, they were, expletive, getting drunk. The video appeared to be recorded by the driver on his cell phone, who said in the expletive-laden recording, "Don't send this video out, you know." It was viewed and shared thousands of times on Facebook, prompting widespread condemnation and calls for the men to be fired. Key details, such as when the video was recorded, are still unclear. The Chinese government's reported crackdown on irrational overseas projects could affect projects in the Bahamas, with new restrictions for investments in property, hotel, and entertainment, and a ban on gambling. Bahamas Institute of Chartered Accountants, BICA, President-elect Gao Bo this week said, while it's important to distinguish between the Chinese state and capital markets in Hong Kong, which has its own independent stock exchange, the recent codification of its policy highlights the critical need for the Bahamas to strengthen its own economic planning unit. Bahama buyer CTFE and Grand Bahama Port developer Hutchison Whampoa are on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and the Grand Lucayan, which is currently up for sale, is owned by Hutchison Whampoa's real estate arm, Chung Kong Property Holdings. However, the Point is owned by China Construction America, CCA, a subsidiary of China's State Construction and Engineering Company. Mr. Bo, former Chamber of Commerce president, explained that the restrictions reinforce shifts taken by the Chinese government to push its Belt and Road policy, a transition and investment agenda that focuses on projects that increase trade with long-term sustainability. His comments were supported by U.S. news agency Bloomberg, which reported that China's National Development and Reform Commission, its top economic planning body, has criticized irrational overseas investment in some sectors, while encouraging projects linked to the Belt and Road Initiative. The NDRC reportedly cited problems with overseas investments, adding that some companies made rash decisions and sustained major losses. In a recent statement, China's State Council announced a ban on investments in core military technology, gambling, sex industry, and investments which were contrary to national security. Investments in property, hotel, film, entertainment, sports, obsolete equipment are all restricted, along with investments that contravene environmental standards. Investments that further the Belt Road Framework, enhance China's technical standards, research and development, oil and mining, exploration, agriculture, and fishing are all encouraged. Mr. Bowe, in an interview with the Tribune, said the country has taken for granted that good foreign direct investment projects like Atlantis and Baker's Bay remain in our collective memories much longer than negative outcomes, like the failed Gin-sur-Mer project in West End, Grand Bahama, and the shuttered South Ocean Resort. He ultimately advocated for the shift in the Bahamas government's agenda from investor to facilitator and regulator, and a concrete investment identity for the country. Two former parliamentarians this week accused former Prime Minister Perry Christie of keeping his deputy and now interim PLP leader, Philip Brave Davis, out of the loop while in office, because the former became insecure over the latter's threat to his leadership. Philip Galanis and George Smith told the Tribune that Mr. Christie removed programs that would typically remain in the remit of the Ministry of Works in order to wound Mr. Davis's ambitions while showing favoritism towards less senior cabinet ministers. Their statements come as Mr. Davis seeks to cement his leadership of the party at its convention in October, despite calls from some for the old guard of the Progressive Liberal Party to make way for politicians that were untainted by its recent history. Mr. Smith said Mr. Davis has been rendered inactive by Mr. Christie's alleged actions, which he said gave the impression that Mr. Christie was uncomfortable with Mr. Davis's ambitions. He further claimed that Mr. Christie's alleged actions were the reasons former Elizabeth MP Ryan Pinder and former Central and South Eleuthera MP Damien Gomez resigned from their cabinet posts. For his part, Mr. Galanis claimed that Mr. Christie was so insecure in his position as leader that he decided to ostracize Mr. Davis for challenging him for the party's leadership. Mr. Galanis further claimed that Mr. Christie's actions toward Mr. Davis, which started sometime around September 2015, eventually mushroomed into belligerence towards other persons who suggested that they would support others and not himself. Another former cabinet minister in the Christie administration, who spoke to the Tribune on a condition of anonymity, further claimed the alleged actions by Mr. Christie, which he said started in the second year of the PLP's last stint in office and worsened as it got closer to Mr. Christie's then expected retirement from politics. The former parliamentarian charged that had Mr. Davis been allowed to do his job, the unpopularity of that Christie administration could have been assuaged. Meanwhile, other sources said Mr. Christie believed the Ministry of Works allowed Mr. Davis to develop relationships with many people seeking contracts and opportunities, relationships that could have proven politically beneficial. During his contribution to the budget debate in May, Works Minister Desmond Bannister hinted that Mr. Davis was undermined as Minister of Works. While criticizing the former administration's management of public-private partnerships, Mr. Bannister said, "Cat Island can't help us to unravel this puzzle. They stripped him naked starting in 2015. His own people started taking power away from him, took all the roadside and park contracts, didn't let him know what about the public-private partnerships. Cat Island has got to be feeling good that he's back here, while the fellow who stripped him is gone. I know I won't hear a point of order on that." Police this week have urged members of the public to report instances of suspected fraud after several alleged ASU companies have been accused of scamming persons out of thousands of dollars. Assistant Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernander this week said as far as he knows, the Central Detective Unit had not received any official complaints regarding theft and fraud despite seeing several accusations on social media. However, his comments came as nearly a dozen persons contacted the Tribune over concerns about a company called Golden Chess ASU Holders. And those calls came one day after this newspaper reported a warning from the Securities Commission, which advised the public that the local business Pineapple Express ASU Holders should be viewed as an unsafe and very high risk. The Commission also advised members of the public to exercise extreme caution when considering to engage with that entity or person soliciting membership. The Commission said methods used by Pineapple Express is structured like a pyramid or Ponzi scheme where promoters claim they can turn a small investment into large profits within a short period of time. The statement from the Securities Commission urged anyone with concerns about the company to contact the police. Hundreds of Pineapple Express members flocked to their business on Friday, hoping to recoup losses after the business was temporarily shut down last week. Golden Chess, similar to Pineapple Express, promised persons a big payout for a small investment. In order to join, persons were required to pay a one-time fee of $85 and receive $800, or pay $170 and receive $1,500. Persons were also required to pay a $20 membership fee. After signing up, a member was supposed to receive a payout in about 14 days. However, the Tribune understands that after collecting money from persons interested in the scheme, Golden Chess allegedly shut down without paying anyone the money promised or without issuing refunds. On the company's Facebook page, representatives from Golden Chess claimed two persons stole the money, and as a result, they were unable to continue the business. The Post claimed that the alleged theft was reported to CDU and the persons responsible were being sought by police in connection with the stealing by reason of employment. However, ACP Fernanda said CDU has never received a report from Golden Chest in reference to theft, and police are not currently searching for anyone in reference to the matter. However, he urged members of the public who feel they have been scammed to come forward and speak with police. Want to get in on the discussion? Well, here's how you can. Log on to our website, www.tribune242.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tribune242, or send us a tweet at Tribune242.